he'd gone out on Friday night and it was now Monday and nobody had got hold of him, I knew instantly this was really bad.
You know, it's certainly not getting any easier as time goes on.
It's beyond what your mind's meant to deal with.
Friday the 23rd of September, a normal night out for 23-year-old Corrie McCaig. The senior aircraftman in the RAF drove into Bury St Edmunds for drinks with friends.
He's the most outgoing person that I know. He loves attention from anyone he could possibly get. Not that he's an attention seeker, he just loves being around people. He doesn't want to sit in on the weekend and sit and watch a film or something like that. He doesn't do that. He likes to go out, he likes to socialise, he likes to meet people, and that's what his life just revolves around, is going out, making friends and going out with friends.
Corrie is funny, very happy, positive, gets things done, very driven, had cared deeply about his friends and family. He was very passionate, he cared a lot. Sometimes you'd say too much.
Corrie left his base, RAF Honington, at around 10 p.m. and spent the evening in local pubs before going on to a club.
It wasn't a night out for an occasion, it was a night out because it was a Friday. And 23-year-old servicemen don't really need any more occasion than it's a day that ends in a Y to go out. They went out and he was having exactly the same kind of night that he always has. You know, there was just nothing about it that was out of the ordinary whatsoever.
Immediately before Corrie met up with his friends, he parked up here and spent 40 minutes on the phone to his brother Darach, arranging to meet up the following weekend.
We were planning, we can go out in Cambridge, we can go out to London, we can do anything, and we were properly really excited about that. And obviously it was a Friday night, I needed to go to my bed. He then went out and says we'll speak to each other on Sunday or try and plan more ahead.
And he seemed perfectly normal in that conversation.
More happy than usual. He was in his happiest place that he could be. He was just about to go out and have a night out with all of his mates from the base and just doing what he does best.
But what started out as a normal night took an unexplained turn.
There doesn't appear to be anything really that's out of character in the way that he's behaved on that night, other than after 3:25 we don't yet know where Corrie's gone.
Well, I think initially people were shocked. He's a very likeable character. It's unusual, it's not usual for him to go missing, and I think that has affected people here. Certainly his close friends are very concerned, as you can imagine, and I think it has had a shock on everybody on the station, and we want to find him.
Corrie appeared to be in a happy mood. He has no history of mental illness and no money worries. His family can't think of anything that would explain him wanting to disappear. But he did, and what happened that night is still a mystery. Corrie McCaig now ranks amongst the 120,000 people who go missing in the UK every year.
When you hit the adult demographic, so those 18 and over, actually we have more men that tend to be reported as missing than women, and again I think it's about 60% tend to be men. We have very few that become long-term missing persons. Around 75% will be within 24 hours. Within a week we will have about, I think it's 95% of the cases will have been resolved, and we know that less than 1% are still remaining missing after 12 months.
This is the nightclub Flex that Corrie left in the early hours of Saturday the 24th of September. He'd had a little bit too much to drink and one of the door staff asked him to leave. There hadn't been any arguments and Corrie left alone. His family say there's nothing unusual in that. This is what we know happened next. After leaving Flex, Corrie walked to Pizza Mamma Mia about 5 minutes away. It wasn't his first time there.
Had you seen Corrie before?
Yes, I did see him.
How often had you seen him?
Like every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. He was coming every 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
And when he came in, what sort of mood was he in? How was he behaving?
No idea. He was a normal guy, you know.
After leaving Pizza Mamma Mia, Corrie was picked up on CCTV at around 1:20 a.m. on Brent Govell Street. He can be seen eating the food he'd just bought.
He took that fast food round about 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning, and he sat down in the doorway of a shop within the town centre of Bury St Edmunds, and we know that he fell asleep there for some time. A number of people saw him, and we've spoken to people that saw him as he was sleeping in the doorway. Some of them checked on him to make sure he was okay, and he was okay at that point.
At 3:08, Corrie, still in the doorway, replied to an earlier message he received from a friend. It was the last time he used his phone. 15 minutes later, he got up and walked into a refuse collection area behind the shops. That CCTV footage was the last confirmed sighting of Corrie McCaig. He wasn't seen leaving this area on any camera. An expert team has forensically scoured this area and there's no forensic trace of him. That doesn't mean that he wasn't here. So what happened next? Where did he go? And how did the police investigation unfold? It was RAF Honington that first raised the alarm that Corrie was missing when he failed to turn up for duty on Monday, the 26th of September.
When he should have been on parade with his squadron, he obviously wasn't there, so the squadron went to look for him, tried to locate him, and of course couldn't do that, so his friends reported him to the chain of command that he wasn't on parade, and obviously the chain of command, about 2 hours later, actually reported him as being missing. So we contacted the service police first, and then obviously the service police then went through the civilian police, and that's the normal process that we would go through.
Corrie had left his then 7-month-old dog Luelle in his room on the base, a sign his family say that he never had any intention of not returning. Initial thoughts were that perhaps Corrie had decided to walk the 9 miles back from Bury St Edmunds to RAF Honington. The countryside around the market town, woodland, hills and rivers have made searching a challenge.
To begin with, Bury St Edmunds is down at the bottom of the map here, and just so you can see, Honington and the airfield is just at the top. Now, what we've looked at is a direct line as the crow would fly, but then we've taken specific advice from the National Crime Agency, from our specialist search leaders within the organisation, and we've looked at the potential sites that we would need to cover around that area. How far out either side of that we would realistically need to go, and what information we already know in regards to people who have walked back previously from the base, information that we hold ourselves when we've picked people up or when we've assisted them in that matter.
Despite police, military and civilian teams scouring the area, nothing has so far been found to indicate that walking was Corrie's plan. And there was another early concern.
Circumstances in this case, of course, is you've got a serviceman who's missing from his unit in an area where not too long beforehand in Norfolk, there was an allegation of where somebody was a serviceman out jogging, and there were 2 men who approached him, and we think they were trying to abduct him. So there's that side to it. So this is the sort of case where you'd like to think that the police immediately would be identifying this as a fairly high priority.
We were very alive to that early on in the investigation, and alive to the potential that there was a link between the two, and alive to the impact that that might have on the military community in Suffolk and more widely. However, as we've investigated this, we've not identified any links between this investigation and the investigation you refer to. No substantial links really that indicate that this could be a similar matter.
Corrie McCaig has been missing since the early hours of Saturday, the 24th of September. The RAF serviceman went out in Bury St Edmunds with friends. He left a club on his own, went to get food, and was last seen on CCTV at 3:25 in the morning. Then he disappeared.
There is not a single bit of corroborated evidence that shows where my son has gone.
Corrie's family were desperate for information.
He's a good-looking lad at 3 o'clock in the morning, walking about in a pink shirt and white trousers. He is easily identifiable. Somebody might not think it's important, but please get in touch.
Then came an early lead from his mobile phone. Police traced his Nokia Lumia 435 from Bury St Edmunds 13 miles north to the Barton Mills area, and detectives seized a bin lorry.
The bin van was in the right place at the right time. The mast that the phone pinged on is on the route the bin lorry took. And so obviously a very quick deduction to make. If you look at the parts of that equation, though, it starts to break down a little bit.
In fact, equipment that weighs the rubbish proved Corrie could not have been on board. But what about his phone? It wasn't found on the lorry either. Could it have been dumped in the recycling centre? Unless the phone turns up elsewhere, Corrie's family will never know, because it was never searched.
There are a number of reasons why that site wasn't searched. The primary one being, or one of the primary reasons being, the processing that takes place with any waste that goes to that site, and the assurance that we would be able to have as to whether anything we were looking for could actually be found, or whether it had been destroyed or taken elsewhere. So we could spend an awful lot of time and money and effort, and probably put people at risk in carrying out that search, and still not be assured that anything could be found that were to be there. But actually there were, and there still are, really key lines of inquiry that we needed to carry out that were a higher priority than that at that time.
Was that not a missed opportunity to get your hands on the phone?
No, I don't think that's a missed opportunity at all.
The phone is vitally important in my view, in the sense that not only can they tell what phone calls he may have made or texts that he may have made, but there are contacts in that phone. There may be other messages that he might not have sent for some reason, or certainly the contacts. Certainly within the first or the 24 hours before he went missing, who was he in contact with? Who was he speaking to? We don't know that. To get that phone would be a vital piece of that jigsaw.
Corrie's uncle has used his military intelligence background throughout the investigation to question police decisions.
You always want to trust the police, and that's hopefully something we all do. But when you can see there's a lack of action based on a lack of resource, that's hard to accept. When it's a family member, when it's your son, your brother, your nephew that you're looking for, somebody trying to explain to you they're not going to do something because it costs a bit of money, you just can't accept that as being a reasonable response to your question.
There are still unanswered questions around Corrie's phone. Primarily, had he used it to arrange to meet someone? And without the device, can the police access information from popular dating apps?
There's quite a lot of information that we can obtain. I think it's probably fair to say that I don't want to go into that detail, really.
There have been few reported sightings of Corrie after CCTV caught him at 3:25 on the Saturday morning. One did place him walking in the early hours near the Hollow Road industrial estate, but it came to nothing.
At this point in time, there's not a single sighting that's been made since day one that the police have taken on or are continuing as an active line of inquiry. Through those just, I think I saw them the following morning kind of conversations. so which is obviously disappointing, but that's where we are.
Right, can we give you a leaflet about our missing servicemen? Thank you.
Do you live locally?
Yeah.
Have you seen the CCTV at all?
No, I looked online last night.
There's a lot more on it. There's 23 people that are walking about that haven't been identified yet.
Corrie's family have worked hard to keep the investigation in the public eye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
They pushed for the police CCTV viewing pod to be taken back to Bury St Edmunds after an early initial visit.
Are you here to see the footage?
Yeah.
Yeah? Think you might know someone of interest?
There's something missing. Someone must have seen something. If he's gotten in a car, you've offered him a lift, you've dropped him off. Because we don't have the information, you know, we still need these people to come forward.
It's the CCTV footage that has produced the most fruitful lines of inquiry.
And they're playing it just in there just now, so if you would watch it, you might recognise somebody that was walking about.
But Suffolk Police have faced criticism for only initially requesting it from local businesses and the council up to 8 a.m. on the Saturday Corrie went missing.
Selective locations were targeted and a fairly narrow time window was specified to gather that CCTV. Now, I think that that's probably still in that context of the initial investigation team, the local team, before the major investigation team got involved. And as soon as they did, they realised that they quickly needed to broaden that request. And so a sweep was done to look for more of the cameras, more of the businesses and buildings that had CCTV, approach them and ask for a wider range of CCTV. I think it's fair to say we now know that that in itself still wasn't wide enough. And I think that that was a limiting factor that we would certainly have done differently.
More than 1,000 hours of CCTV footage has been gathered. Processing it has taken time, and it's been a cause of frustration.
Prioritisation, it's working through it, and as I've explained, it's not simply viewing 1,000 hours of CCTV and when you've viewed it for 1,000 hours, it's done. Lots of it has had to be viewed, reviewed and reviewed again, time and time again, and not just viewed one bit of footage, but that you then need to look at the little bit of footage that goes next to it to see if you can identify Corrie or a witness on it.
Here in Bury St Edmunds, there are missing posters in almost every shop window. They're on the backs of cars and they are on lamp posts. It's very hard to get around this town without knowing that he is missing. And yet police are still trying to identify many people they've seen on CCTV who are of interest. They're hoping these people will come forward so police can eliminate them from their inquiries. What the CCTV does tell us is that Corrie went into the refuse collection area behind the shops at 3:25 on the Saturday morning. He isn't seen leaving on the footage police have so far viewed. His family say it's not possible to leave the area without being caught on camera. It raises the question of third-party involvement.
I think it's difficult to see a scenario that it's not a third party involved and that we're not now looking for a body. And as much as I don't want to say that, and I know that Nikki still believes that we are looking for Corrie alive, and I want to believe that too, I find it harder to get there.
4 vehicles, including the bin lorry, were in the area at the time and are of interest. At this point in the investigation, though, the police won't say any more than that.
If one of these people have perhaps taken Corrie and they've got him locked up in a house somewhere or somewhere just now, it might be ridiculous, but if that could happen to anyone, honestly, even now, so far on, it's Corrie that it could happen to.
Every day it just puts it more and more into my mind that Corrie isn't going to come back. If there is someone that can come back, it is him. But in my mind, within a week of him not coming back, that I don't feel like it's going to be a good outcome.
It's a difficult investigation. It's a complex investigation, and we are more than 2 months into this, into his disappearance now. I hope sincerely that we do find him. I hope that we're able to identify the circumstances that he's disappeared in. But it is a very, very complex and painstaking investigation, but we will put every effort into finding out what happened.
At some point, the police investigation will have to scale back. It hasn't come to that yet, but when it does, it'll be a difficult moment for Corrie's family.
We will find him one day. It's just not an option not to.